Jake, we got us some NFL action to talk about. I'm excited. Uh, the college football model, which had been a couple years running, made some massive upgrades over the season, made it player-based, took that skeleton and adapted it to the NFL. A few differences, of course. A few differences in college. You got to think about recruiting rankings. You got to think about the coaches, right? Because you kind of just know a guy coming in to Tennessee, to Alabama, is going to be better than a guy going into Rice. So how do you deal with that? The NFL is a little bit different with that, right? So I had to make some changes for sure, but really excited to unveil and I kind of had an NFL model very loosely before, but this is kind of the premium now version. Excited to cover. We're going to talk about 6 games. We've got the rest of the games over on Dub Club. Got a bunch of A-grade picks. I'm excited. Let's do some NFL.
Yeah, no, it's going to be wild with the making professional athletes again instead of just trying to figure out who's going to class and all that. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Now they just play football.
The question is, and maybe someone can tell us, can we even say NFL, or are we supposed to say pro football? I feel like that maybe I shouldn't even have NFL on the screen up there. I might be breaking rules. I know the rule is about the team names, right? There's those are trademarks, so we're not going to use those, right? We can't use team logos, right? I know the NFL's or professional football. I don't know. Someone will have to let me know. We can't say the name of the last game of the season, right? There's all these weird. We need a lawyer. If anybody's a lawyer, and knows these things.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The No Fun League. There you go. Yeah. We are going to talk about the Thursday game here, several of the Sunday games. Not going to cover the Monday night game, but again, Dub Club has all the other games. Jake, the last thing I want to say before we get started, number one, if you're a new viewer with us, do make sure you watch the intro at least one time. We are talking probabilities. We're talking money lines here, and that matters. We are not trying to say what we think absolutely will happen. We're just giving out probabilities and saying this makes for smart long-term betting. It's the same process that we use in college basketball. It's the same process that we use in college football. It's the same process that we've used all season in baseball. And we just keep rolling out the profits, it seems like, season after season. By taking this approach, it's not going to win every single game. It's not going to win every single day. We're going to be quote-unquote wrong. Kind of as mentioned with Cousin Jared, though, yesterday in the college football show, we're never really wrong as much as we're the probability. Sometimes unlikely events happen, but we do have to try to make adjustments. We'll make adjustments, especially after week 1. If we feel like the probabilities, missed a little bit and that the probabilities from the happening should have been higher or lower, things like that. The good news about the NFL, we were able to use preseason data, which really matters for a lot of the people without data. The preseason data is not going to do a single thing to some of your better players. A bunch of your better players hardly played at all. But for some of these young guys, I went and added the preseason data today, and it really mattered for some of these young quarterbacks, these young running backs and receivers. Looking at how they graded out on each individual play did seem to matter. So we have a little bit of a help here in week 1. I think we'll have a little bit fewer adjustments after NFL week 1 than we will college football week 1 because getting that preseason helps us out a little bit. But the last thing, if you are a Dub Club subscriber, you can get into our NFL Survivor Pool. It's exclusive to Dub Clubbers, and the winner gets a free year at Dub Club. So definitely be looking for the details for that if you're with us on Dub Club. If not, sign up this week. That link's in the show description. The deadline for that contest, I think it's going to close maybe on Thursday to get in, because that first game, you won't have to have a pick by then, I think. But it might close Thursday to get in. I'm not sure. But be looking for those details here. We'll get that out soon so that people can get into that. So we get a fun contest with a massive prize and a year subscription to the Dub Club to get college basketball, baseball. You'll get everything for the whole year. So you'll get to see everything. So check that out. Without further ado, let's get to it here. Thursday night, Detroit and Kansas City. The offensive grades that you see on the screen are the offensive grades without the quarterback. NFL, again, works a little bit different than college, and this is kind of the better way to model it. So when you see offense there that is without quarterbacks, you can see Kansas City grades out fairly well in offense, even beside having Patrick Mahomes. And, of course, he's very good. I have him as the 3rd best quarterback in football. I do have Allen and Burrow slightly ahead of him, but it's kind of rounding error at that point. Really good quarterback. Obviously, Mahomes, I have him being worth 6.2 points to the spread. Jared Goff, the 30th ranked quarterback, is 1.9. 30th ranked gets a 99 because I'm grading backups as well, because we're going to see a lot of backup quarterbacks, unfortunately, throughout the season. And so kind of grading them all together, putting them all on the same scale, your replacement level is kind of what Goff is. 2 points, decent quarterback. There's some zeros and some negatives, right? But Goff's not terrible, but he's not great. He doesn't really have a lot of help. Jake, I'm not high on Detroit this year. Just perusing where my rankings are compared to some other popular rankings, I'm very low on Detroit. And part of it is that defense getting 124. I'm actually a little bit lower on Kansas City as well. That defense of 123 not being very good, obviously, then without one of their star defensive players here who I was able to pull out of the model. So that Kansas City defense kind of makes me a little bit skeptical of them. I don't think they're going to be bad, but I might be not quite as high as other people. But I'm way lower on Detroit. I think they've got an okay offense and a bad defense. And I don't know how you make the playoffs with an okay offense and a bad defense without a lot of luck. I mean, it doesn't seem very likely to me. What do you think?
No, I mean, they faded in the middle of last year, and then they finished strong, but they really weren't playing against great competition there. If you go back and look at so Detroit, I'm kind of low on too. I think everybody's fallen in love with Dan Campbell, and he looks to be like a heck of a coach, a heck of a motivator. Yeah. I would run through a brick wall for him. I don't even play for him, and like they got some talent around there. With Amon St. Brown, I love the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. I think he's going to be a stud. It's just Goff is not a guy to move your offense up. He will maintain where your offense is, but he's not going to improve your offense where Mahomes is absolutely going to. Like everybody thought, Kansas City was going to drop off a little bit when they traded Tyreek Hill. Didn't really drop a beat. I mean, Kelsey is incredible, but I mean, you've got Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney that are on the outside. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I think Kansas City is a very, very good team, and I think they're really going to take advantage of a bad defense for Detroit here.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, as part of what we have on Dub Clubs, I have positional ratings for this as well. So I can tell you here, I group the wide receiver tight ends together. I've got the Chiefs rated at number 6 in the league, which, like you said, losing a guy like that, still being 6 is pretty good. And a lot of that, of course, is Kelsey and how good he is. Offensive line ratings, for instance, got the Chiefs 4th there. That's where the Lions, I think, have a massive strength, is I've got them as the 5th best offensive line group in the league. The issue is very unproven at running back. That's a little bit of concern. Questionable so far on the outside. So they've got a line, but they just don't have a lot at the skill position. Now, that line matters, and that's why their offense has a chance, I think. But it just feels like a really uphill task here at Kansas City. You can see on the screen the model says Kansas City by 8.3 gives them a 77% chance of winning. The current price of Kansas City minus 280 is a C grade. What a C grade means for us here is that we have plus expected value, but it's relatively small. And we've talked about this a little bit. I've been trying to talk about this more with baseball lately, just to kind of communicate how we're thinking about this from a probability standpoint, because gambling is a lot of things, but one of the biggest things is it's math, right? You got to learn a little bit of math. Got to hang with me here on the math, or else you're not going to be a successful gambler. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. We have to think about a little bit of this stuff, right? And there's bankroll management, and there's emotional restraint, right? There's all sorts of things that go into gambling, research, knowledge, right? But part of it's math. And the math here on our C grade is we think we have a little bit of an edge, but if we're missing something, that could flip from a plus expected value play to a minus expected value play. B grade means we're pretty confident. We like it. We've got a decent edge here, but if we're missing something big, that could be minus expected value. A grade is we really think it's a plus expected value play. Even if we're missing something, it probably just drops the edge a little bit. And that's what the Chiefs. This minus 280 is a little bit expensive, but I still think there's value on it. Partially, I think there's value fading the Detroit. Another way you could obviously do that is laying the 6.5 points with Kansas City. Again, model says 8.3, so the model, that would be the side it takes. I find we can find better edges with the money lines because we can do probability here, and a lot of people struggle with probability. A lot of people are afraid to take certain numbers, and that makes the books price things wrong because they know how their market's going to react to it. And that's what we're going to take advantage of here. Minus 280. Again, the way we do this is we're going to have our risk plus win added up. Something that's going to allow us to take some of these bigger favorites. We're going to take a bunch of dogs too. And the idea is as long as we are hitting this at a percentage higher than the implied minus 280, it's a profitable pick. That's what 77% would indicate. That's what makes this a strong pick. There's not I have a hunch Kansas City wins. It is if they win 77% of the time, minus 280 is a good price. Minus 350, not a good price. Got to make sure we're finding good prices. Minus 280 is decent enough, C grade. Jake, what else you want to add about taking Kansas City here on Thursday night?
I think you nailed it with the lines, and because Jared said it best. I mean, the spreads gets iffy because you don't know what teams are going to do. Like Penn State at the end. If you're sitting on West Virginia, that is insane. That kind of beat. But when your goals are aligned with the team, which both teams want to win, so that makes it a lot easier to bet. And then the system you've created with the adding up, like betting risk to reward, adding up to something really will add tons of money to your bankroll. Slowly but surely, you'll just be creeping up, and it's a lot of fun to watch those numbers go up. But I think Kansas City is a much better team. I think the offensive line is really good. There's something to be said for all the cohesion they've had for the years. I do think Kansas City stands a great chance of winning this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. Kansas City minus 280 against C-grade picker. We also do have a play on the total. Not going to talk about though. That's an A-grade total play for Thursday night. Going to keep that exclusive to Dub Club. So check that out if you're not already there with us. Which takes us to the Sunday slate, 1 p.m. Carolina and Atlanta. A couple of quarterbacks that I'm kind of interested to see what they look like this year. Desmond Ridder for Atlanta, Bryce Young for Carolina. I've got Bryce Young based off his preseason data, number 34, a grade of 98, kind of like that Jared Goff. Right now looks decent. Here's the thing, though. Jared Goff has enough data historically that Goff has a good game or a bad game. His rating won't change much. Bryce Young has a good game or two, bad game or two. His rating's going to move a lot more because there's not a lot of data right now. We can kind of transit some of that college data. We know he's going to be probably not terrible, but he wouldn't be the first quarterback to come out of college and struggle. Desmond Ridder, a young guy as well. Interested to see how he progresses in his young career. Both these quarterbacks, I think, are pretty comparable. Both these defenses are pretty comparable, pretty average. Again, lower is better on defense because it's always higher is more points or runs. If we're talking baseball, lower is less. Look at the difference between those supporting cast, though, between Carolina and Atlanta. Carolina, I mean, not a lot happening at running back, not a lot happening at wide receiver or tight end. I've got their offensive line as the 20th ranked line, which is the best thing going for them at this point on offense is their line. Not a lot happening there on offense. Atlanta, on the other hand, while there is that question mark at receiver, ranks number 7 of non-quarterback offenses. Why do they rank so high? Number 2 offensive line. I think that's going to be really key, create a lot of holes for them in the running game, give Desmond Ridder time. Will it matter? We'll see how good he can be this year, but he should at least have plenty of time. Pretty mediocre everywhere else, but that offensive line is really good for Atlanta. That's part of why a little bit of home field, but home field matters not a ton in the NFL these days. Part of the reason why we have Atlanta -5 and a 66% chance to win. So we're on them here at -175 C grade. Same thing, plus expected value. We like this value. Would like it better if the price drops. Still think it's worth a play. Our recommended plays, someone was asking here on Discord, A grade plays, B grade plays, and the plays we talk on show, because these are the ones that we've done that extra looking at and say we really think there's extra value here. Maybe more above some of the other C grades. So we're going to be very selective with our C grade plays. Let's see one. We like here, Atlanta -175. Jake, take it away.
Yeah, I think Atlanta is the better team here, and I think the defense is a little better than what you're showing, just in my opinion. I really like several of their players on defense with the signing of Calais Campbell and A.J. Terrell. I think can really up a defense more than they hurt anywhere else with some of the things they do. But it really comes down to Carolina. There's just so much new there. You've got a new quarterback with a new coach he's trying to figure everything out. I think there's way too much for me to ever feel safe backing them, except for maybe against Arizona if they play. But like Atlanta, you've got a great offensive line it's really going to make Bijan Robinson look great, even though he may not be that good right away. He's going to be able to get 2 or 3 yards before anybody touches him, so it's going to look good. You've got Cordero Patterson. I don't know how they plan on using him this year, but he's just a weapon that they love to get the ball in his hands, throw it to him, hand it to him, whatever they need to do. Then you have a guy like Kyle Pitts that makes everybody feel a lot better. And Desmond Ridder, I'm not sure about him, but we're sure going to find out. And I think this is a good game to get a good look at him.
This is, again, his grade is based off of just him, that 95. So again, I'm saying below average, right? I think he's below kind of replacement level. I think there are better quarterbacks out there for sure. Again, he's according to the model the 40th best quarterbacks. I mean, there's a lot of backups better than him. So I'm with you. It's just all the pieces around him. You mentioned Bijan Robinson, of course. The running back group for the Falcons is ranked number 20. That's another one where we have we don't know about Bijan, right? We know he's just an incredible athlete. What we saw with him at Texas was incredible. How will he fare right off the bat? We'll have a good line, which is important because a lot of times these good running backs, and I think that's why there's a lot of hype around him. A lot of times good running backs get drafted really high, don't come into offensive lines. There's maybe one other one that I'm forgetting, but the only other one I can remember in this situation was Zeke Elliott back with the Cowboys, who came into a good line and excelled right off the bat as a high draft pick. But that's the rare case. Most of the time, a top running back gets drafted to a bad team, bad offensive line, and they're constantly hitting him in the backfield. That gives him a chance to be successful. So that's where, again, that line is driving, I think, a lot of the success that everybody else around him may not be as good and or it's unproven. We got a lot of question marks, but that line can really matter. I'm kind of like, I think Atlanta is decent enough. You talk about the defense, their defensive line ranked 7th according to the model, so it's pretty good. There's a little bit more concerns about their secondary, so that's where they're going to have to shore things up. Is that going to matter here against Carolina? Probably not as much. And so that gives them a little bit of an edge that they can probably mask a deficiency, whereas they might not be able to mask that against, we were talking about Kansas City. A questionable secondary might be a bad thing against them, maybe not against Carolina. So we're like Atlanta here. Good model says they should be 5-point favorites. This is one where if you're laying 3, that probably seems pretty reasonable. Over 3, that's questionable if you're actually getting plus expected value because the probability the game lands on 4 or 5, it's not impossible, but it's not overly likely. So that's where, again, I like just going to the money line. It's pure math. I don't have to worry about conditional probabilities of things like that. We don't have to worry about, like you said, we saw it with Louisville, Georgia Tech on Friday night. Team is up, 12 or whatever, and they're like, oh, we don't care if we give up a score. We don't have to worry about these things. Our incentives are aligned, so Atlanta minus 175, worth your while there. Also at 1 p.m., Arizona, Washington. Unless you're a fan of one of these teams, probably not going to be on your television. Arizona, just a mess. I'm going to say something that might be a little bit of a hot take. I don't think Arizona is actually the worst team in the league if they've got Kyler Murray at quarterback. Not that Murray's amazing, but he's good enough to, I think, make them like 31st best in the league. Issue is no Kyler Murray. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. We don't seem to know at this point. I can't even honestly remember which guy I've got in there. I don't think it matters. I think the backups are going to be pretty rough. The backup combination there gets an 88 grade. So we're talking about, you've seen the numbers in the quarterbacks, and we've talked about guys like Goff and Ritter and some of these guys who we don't think are that good getting upper 90s, and 88's that's not a good grade, right? You're talking about a bad situation there. Offensively, not the worst group. Why is that? They do have some skill at running back. They got an okay offensive line. They have absolutely nothing happening at wide receiver. That's going to be their issue, is they have nothing happening there. Defensively, though, worst defensive line according to the model, and the linebackers and defensive backs aren't that much better. That 130 is a terrible grade. They're going to be in for a long year, especially on situations like this with no Kyler Murray, who's probably the only thing that gives them a prayer of winning a game. I have Washington minus 7.9, a projected score of 26 to 18. I think the spread's priced pretty well. Instead, that we're going to go over 37.5, largely on the fact that the Arizona defense is truly terrible. Washington's defense slightly better than average. Washington ought to put up some points here, and if they get 26, like the model projects, we only need 12 from Arizona to hit this over. So there's some pretty good value here. A grade on this over. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this over is one of the best plays on the board because Sam Howell is a good quarterback. People forget how good he was in North Carolina. He's going to get a really easy start here, and he's got guys like Curtis Samuel, very very good receiver. Terry McLaurin, very good receiver. And Dotson seems like he's going to be great. Tight end, I'm not sold on Logan Thomas, but they've got a good running back room, good offensive line, and I think they are like Sam Howell's going to feast, and they're just going to let him open it up. I mean, McLaurin can absolutely make this over go by himself, and I don't see anybody on Arizona getting in his way. And it's extremely hard to shut teams out at the NFL level, even when you're like, gosh, I'm a huge Tennessee fan. I love Joshua Dobbs and what he did at Tennessee, but he's just not there at the NFL level. He's just not good enough. Smart guy. He's gonna make some good plays. But I mean, if he's starting, he's been there maybe 2 weeks now. Like,
It's not been long.
Yeah, how much of the offense does he really know? So, like, I don't expect much out of Arizona's offense, but it's extremely hard to shut these teams out. And James Conner is a very solid running back. They may get 10-ish points, and that should be more than enough.
And, we talk about totals in the 30s. In college, I like going under totals in the 30s because the college game is very different. And we talked about this with Cousin Jared. If they're putting that total in the 30s, it kind of tells you something. You kind of have an idea of what's happening because it's such a unique situation. In the NFL, it's kind of more 50-50 for me because, like you said, it's hard to shut a team out. You end up with special teams. There's a lot of skill in special teams. Whereas in the college game on special teams, there's not a ton of skill out there for most teams. The Alabamas of the world, the Texases of the world, they've got some guys that can make some plays on special teams. So most of them, you're talking about overall not that talented of guys because they're the third, fourth string guys, at 19 years old, right? The NFL, those special team guys are very talented, and you end up with special teams play scores. You end up with a defensive score. Like, there's just a lot of ways where something goes wrong and you get a few extra points. And this number should be low. It's one of my lower projected totals on the board. But Arizona's defense is going to just give up so many points that this seems like it should not be in the 30s. It should be more in the low 40s. Again, models projecting more like 44, which is actually the most common NFL score, I believe. The most important key number here in the NFL is 44, and that's kind of where the model sees it. Maybe that's a little bit high. Maybe it should be 43, 42, but either way, over 37.5 is pretty good value there. So a great pick on that one. So a bit of a rivalry game here, Green Bay at Chicago. Green Bay, a new era now with Jordan Love. Now that Aaron Rodgers has moved on, I guess that's been kind of a story. To see someone here new in Green Bay after all that. And I feel like he took all his favorite toys and his friends with him over to the Jets as well. Green Bay's still going to be solid on offense. So you see that 108 grade. Why do they have that? A lot of skill at the running back position and a very good offensive line, though the wide receivers and tight end group, again, that's where I think, Rodgers took a couple of his friends with him. So that's a little bit hurting there, but a good line should help out what, again, is a questionable quarterback. We don't really know a lot about how he's going to look. Model's just kind of saying mediocre for now. Justin Fields, pretty solid. Hearing a lot of hype about him. His passing rating, though, according to Sideline, not very good. It's all about his legs, and that's where he's going to be dynamic and make plays. That's why he's ranked as the 14th best quarterback. It's not because of his arm. It's definitely because of his legs. The issue is, while he has a good line, he doesn't really have a lot else to make it happen. So it's going to be mostly him trying to generate that offense. Neither one of these defenses stands out as strong. None of the individual units stand out as strong. I think these are going to be both relatively below average defenses. These two teams are ranked pretty similar. I've got Green Bay as the number 22 team and Chicago as the number 23 team, which says coin toss on a neutral. Given the games in Chicago, they should be slight favorites. We're going to take them minus 115. Again, slight value at a C grade. Can't really pay much more of a price in this, but this is an acceptable price to play it at. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Justin Fields believer because, like you said, his passing not great. But
not great.
He can run the ball very well, and that makes his passing a little bit better because linebackers aren't getting as involved in the passing defense because they've got to keep eyes on him. And I think the pickup of DJ Moore is going to be huge for him because having a stud receiver like that can make some of those inaccurate throws become catches that were being dropped or intercepted before. I like Herbert a lot. They've got a decent line. Foreman is a good battering ram near the goal line. I think this Bears team is going to be very solid. Defense, I'm not sold on them yet. But I've never been a big Jordan Love fan. He's not got a ton of weapons around him outside the running backs. Romeo Doubs not been what they thought he was going to be when they drafted him. So I don't see him really stepping up. Tight end is a very weak spot for me there. I just really think the Chicago team should really come away with the win here.
I think the issue is with Chicago only having one wide receiver, a decent defense should be able to take him out of the equation. And that's going to force Fields to just be scrambling for his life because he won't have a lot else. The issue is the count in this game Is Green Bay good enough to do that? And that's where I'm not sure the answer is yes. The defensive backs for Green Bay have ranked 29th. So it's not like they've got the secondary to say, yeah, we're going to take this one guy out of your arsenal, and then what are you left with? And you can't throw the ball. Good luck beating us. And I think good teams are going to make the Bears look really foolish offensively. Good defense because they can do that. Green Bay doesn't seem like that defense. Again, like I talked at the top of the show, right? Reviewing the world on probabilities, anything can happen on any given Sunday. Trademark, I guess. And so you never really know what's going to happen. It's just we're talking about a typical game in general. This isn't the setup to make Fields and that offense looking at, but I do think that's going to happen a lot this year. This is a situation where he might have a little bit more success. Fields is definitely going to be one of the interesting cases. One of the guys this offseason that you hear a lot of hype about, a lot of how much growth is he going to have? How much is his rating going to jump? How much is his passing going to improve? The model will adjust to that as the season goes along if it's warranted. Right now, the model is a little bit skeptical of that and just really concerned about his passing. So going forward at this point, he's not a guy I'm buying stock in, but there's a lot of young quarterbacks, it seems like, playing this year. It might just be the games we're covering him, but there's a lot of these guys. And based off of how they perform, their grades are going to start going up or down a lot because they don't have a whole lot of set in stoneness like a guy like Patrick Mahomes does, where Mahomes could have 3 bad games and it's going to be like whatever. But there's a lot of guys here, and Fields is one of them. One of the more higher rated ones, but again, one I'm not that sold on relative to the hype. I think he's going to be better than Love, but I feel like there's hype that he might be a top 5 quarterback, and I'm just not seeing it personally. But who knows? If you're a Bears fan, long live optimism of opening week, right?
Yeah, let's hope so.
Of all the teams, the model loves Philadelphia. Absolutely loves them. It loves Jalen Hurts. Decent as a passer, incredible as a runner. I've got him as the 4th best quarterback with a grade of 130. Offensively, absolutely loves what's happening there. Questionable at running back, but I've got them as the number 1 rated wide receiver tight end group and the number 1 rated offensive line. Absolutely love. And again, with Jalen Hurts being the number 4 quarterback, you can handle the fact that your running backs are bottom half of the league. They have got so much talent on offense, and defensively got them as the 2nd best defensive unit, 2nd best defensive line, 3rd best linebacker. Questionable at the secondary. That's going to be the one area a team with a good passing quarterback might be able to do some damage on them. But I love this Philadelphia team. I think they're being undersold when people talk about who's likely to when it be at the top of the year, who's number 1 seed, that sort of thing. I think this Philadelphia team has a great chance to do. I've got them as 7-point road favorites at New England, who just sets up to have a very meh year. Mac Jones at quarterback, number 21 ranked. Not bad, but again, nothing overly special. 70% likely winner for Philadelphia, minus 190 gets a B grade. How much this model loves Philadelphia? I think we're going to be backing them a lot. Mrs. Professor's a Cowboys fan, so hopefully she's not watching this.
This Philadelphia team is they're outstanding. The fact they didn't win the Super Bowl really surprised me. I was all for him because Hurts is amazing. He just throws the ball. He's everything they want Justin Fields to be. And
yeah.
And he's got a great line, incredible receivers. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, that's just not fair. Dallas Goedert is a good to great tight end. They got an incredible defense. And they just keep drafting Georgia players, so they're going to be even better.
So why not?
It's not fair. Jalen Carter and Nakobe Dean, that on that defense is insane. Add in Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett and all that. It's going to be a rough day for Mac Jones in New England, who at least finally has an offensive coordinator calling his plays instead of a defensive coordinator. That was the
details.
That was the most confusing thing that I think I've seen. And it's supposed to be a lot of run-pass option, but I just don't see that working well against Philadelphia. I think they're just going to come in there and boat race them.
Yeah, Philadelphia's going to lose a couple games this season. It happens every year. It's so hard to go undefeated, but really, if they can stay healthy, they've got so much talent. It sets up to be like a 14-3 type season for them. I really like this team. They grade out so well at so many positions. The only two things you can complain about: running back and the secondary. And they're so good elsewhere. They're probably able to make up for those deficiencies because they're not just. I mean, they're elite elsewhere. Top 5 everywhere else. It's incredible how much talent this team has. Like I said, I think we're going to be backing Philadelphia a lot this year. Be great on that money line. Again, you can lay points with them. Model thinks up to 7. So the model thinks laying points with them is fine. Again, you just got to look through what the spread is, up and try to find the right price. Personally, the money line's the way to go for me. It works so well for us in college basketball. We're going to see if we can do the same thing here.
With the running back room, like with teams like the last two we've talked about, do you think having the running quarterback like that allows them to get away with lesser running backs? Like DeAndre Swift
Probably
is going to be catching a lot of passes this year because they don't really need him between the tackles so much on those short distances because Jalen Hurts is pretty much a running back anyway at that level.
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably does allow them to get away with. That's why I said they're able to mask that deficiency because they've got a guy who can run with the ball anyway, so they don't need the most talented guy, next to him in the backfield. They just need someone who's serviceable, and that's. I think it's very possible you could be right. To the Sunday night game, we've taken more favorite so far in this show. Here's one that I think is going to be a coin toss game, but the Cowboys being favored by 3 here seems a little bit of a surprise to me. New York's going to have a slightly better defense, slightly better quarterback play. Here, obviously, Dak Prescott, a very concerning year last year for the Cowboys, drops down to the 16th ranked quarterback. How about Daniel Jones at number 10? So a slightly better quarterback for New York, slightly better defense. I've got their defense ranked 7th, the Cowboys ranked 10th. The Cowboys, of course, where they're going to excel is going to be in the secondary, whereas New York has the number 1 rated defensive line. So you've got 2 pretty solid defenses with certain things that are going really well for them. Should be solid defense for sure. That kind of creates a little bit more of this uncertainty when you're expecting a little bit fewer points because these defenses, the area where the Cowboys are going to excel is outside of the quarterback position on offense. They've got fantastic ability at running back. They're top 10 at wide receiver, tight end, and they're top 10 in the offensive line. And that contrasts with New York, who's basically all hanging their hat on Saquon Barkley. That's basically it. So you can see a massive discrepancy in there. So I've got Dallas as a road favorite. I do think they should be favored on the road, but just very slightly. At one point in the NFL doesn't mean a whole lot. I've got the probability to win at 50%. It's 50-point-something%, but this is pretty close to a coin toss game. Obviously, if this is in Arlington, it's a different situation where you say these slight edges that New York has at quarterback and defense are not offset by the edges everywhere else on offense, but the game location here kind of makes this more 50-50. So we're going to take a shot here with New York at plus 150, A grade value for a game that I don't know what's going to happen. And if you've watched the NFC East for the past 10 years, I feel like every single game is I don't know what's going to happen. So plus 150 is pretty good value for a conference, or for it should be a division that just always seems chaotic year in and year out. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I think Daniel Jones gets a lot of unnecessary hate because
I think so too.
He is the guy that had a 80-yard touchdown run and just fell down. Yeah. I mean, things like that just happen to the guy, unfortunately, and it makes it easy. But this is one of the few years in his career that he's bringing back the same stuff around him. He's going to have Barkley. They actually upgraded at tight end, got Darren Waller, and he's fantastic. I'm very surprised Oakland was willing to let him go because, man, he's going to really help out Daniel Jones. Darius Slayton can take the top off the defense anytime he wants it. I think they've got some really good young guys that are a little unproven with Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe later in the year we see those guys break in and really upgrade this receiving core. But Barkley's a stud. They've got a very, very good defense, and they improved it with Bobby Okereke. I loved watching him here in Indianapolis. I was very mad that they let him go because he's just a very, very good linebacker. I think that really helps with their defense out. And man, I just don't like Dallas. I don't know. It's like they've got the names and they've got. I'm not a big Dak fan. Tony Pollard, I don't know. I don't trust him. He's probably gonna make me look like a fool, but I don't know yet. CeeDee Lamb, good, but I'm not a big fan of the other two receivers either. I don't think their defense and there's that crazy stat out there with Trayvon Diggs. As many interceptions as he gives up, he's too aggressive and gets burned off the top because he gives up twice as many touchdowns for trying to jump routes. And I think that's things are going to kind of happen that way, and New York's going to end up winning this game.
This is also a situation where when you look at those positional groups and those rankings, it sets up where the Dallas strength is not exactly on defense going to be stopping the run. Their strength is going to be, like you said, and it does work out a little risky, but getting those turnovers in the secondary and just really preventing the passing game. And when Dallas is going well, they're not giving up those big plays, and they're really putting a cap on the opposing team's passing game. As good as Daniel Jones is, I think if you're New York, you have to still rely on Saquon Barkley, who's still an incredible running back. And that sets up well because that's not exactly what Dallas's strength is stopping it. So you've got a situation here where New York should be able to take advantage of a weaker linebacking core for Dallas, move the ball on the ground. And that's going to be key here because, it's a team that can really stop the run. That's where New York's going to be a little bit more questionable, especially early on when we don't know quite as much about this receiving core. We don't know as much about this offensive line. If they're stopping the run, because again, New York's not running the ball because the line's great. It's because Saquon Barkley. And if you've got a team who can really, really disrupt the line and throw chaos into that, and now you're pressuring Daniel Jones and you're making him make passes. I'm not saying they can't win games like that, but I'm just saying that's where it's going to get really scary, I think, if you're backing New York. That's not really this Cowboys team. And again, anything can happen in any game. You never know exactly how it's going to play out. But just looking at the strengths of it, this sets up to be a slightly more favorable matchup for New York because of that. And the Cowboys, mediocre on the defensive line, not great at the linebacker position. And so if they're not really taking Barkley out of the game, putting a ton of pressure on Daniel Jones, that's when he can be a little bit more successful as well. So it sets up, I think, for New York to have a little bit more success than a different style of defense that, again, might make them struggle a bit more. So really a coin tossing type game here. You said a lot of names on Dallas, and the model thinks that offense has got a lot of talent, but it's still tough to go on the road and beat a decent team. And I'm just not sure that Dallas is good enough to do that. In the middle of the NFL this year, the teams are ranked really close together with how many points apart they are. It's like I've got Philadelphia way out there, and you've got a couple of really bad teams. But in that middle, at this point, there's just a lot of jumble, a lot of uncertainty here. And so I think that's kind of what you're seeing here. Dallas, a better team, but on the road, plus odds here on New York is really good value. So an A-grade play there. And those are the 6 games that we're covering here. Jake, what are your parting words for the viewer heading into NFL Week 1?
Look, everybody's got a winning fantasy football team right now, and it's great. And you're just kind of revel in that because after this week, somebody's gonna realize they made a terrible mistake, and that's probably going to be me.
I'm sure it's me too. I haven't played fantasy football in a long time, so this being my first year back in fantasy football is going to be quite fun. If you're still hanging around with us, just as a reminder, I teased this on a previous show. I will be watching all of the NFL games this year. So going forward, hopefully I can provide some good insights for you viewers as well based off of what I'm watching the condensed games on the day after. So Mondays I'll be a Monday morning and Monday afternoon quarterback, sitting back and watching all the condensed games, see what I can pick up, what insights. So we'll have a lot of good discussion here. By the end of the year, I should be an expert on all of these teams based off how much football I plan to be watching. So it should be a fun time for everybody. Might drop some nuggets in the Discord chat. So if you're an NFL junkie, make sure you're over there with us on Dub Club to get in that Discord, and I can drop those insights Monday as I see them. And that's all we've got. Again, more great picks on Dub Club. Also, again, make sure you're signed up there so you get the invite to the Survivor Pool. Winner takes home a free year subscription. Otherwise, thank you for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can show the sports betting content provided on this channel shoved right into your feed. Be back all week. Cousin Jared and I will have one more college football episode. We'll have baseball all week. So a lot of good content coming your way. As always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.